saltwater, a broken robot, hours at sea, and determination created the summer blockbuster. Most of you may know about the very troubled production that was Jaws. Most of this movie is what you would consider a complete bust. Way over schedule and way over budget. But that isn't what happened. Many would consider this to be one of the best films of all time, on top of being the movie that has scared them the most throughout the years. Well, how did all that and more come out to be? Let's take a look at how a broken robot invented the summer blockbuster. Before there was the movie that we all know and love, there was a book. That book was named Jaws. Jaws was written by Peter Benchley and remained on the bestsellers list for 44 weeks. Two producers at Universal Studios read the book immediately, and they knew that it had to have a film adaptation. They talked to Peter Benchley to write the script. He wrote 3 versions of the script, and then Carl Gottlieb did another pass and was the on-set screenwriter, the one who changed things on the fly as they're needed when they're filming. This is all really important to understand why this movie came out the way it did. In the book version of Jaws, there were many other subplots that you may not actually know about. Hooper has an affair with Ellen Brody. There's a lot about the mafia and the dealings of the town and the businesses in the town and things like that. And another change is in the book, the main characters are kind of all unlikable. So he made all of the characters likable and then made Hooper survive that shark cage attack, where he didn't actually in the book. So here's why this matters so much. They removed so much of the subplot that really the only thing that mattered anymore was the shark and the boat. That was all that mattered. There wasn't anything else from the book that they could lean on to kind of shorten the shark-focused scenes. It was all about the shark now. This brings us to Steven Spielberg. Steven Spielberg was not actually the original director, but the other director, John Sturges, kept calling the shark a whale the entire time, which made the studio very angry, and then Steven Spielberg was offered the job, because he was just coming off of set of Sugarland Express. Even though he tried to leave this project multiple times, they were able to convince him to stay and film Jaws, and that was that. He directed this project. But here is where things got, for lack of a better word, hectic. This movie was actually one of the first films to be shot completely on the ocean, which meant there were a lot of challenges that no one else had actually dealt with at the time. Remember, at this point, Steven Spielberg is only 26 years old. He's not the professional we know him as today. He's not the professional we know him as today, so dealing with actors getting seasick, ships sailing into frame far out in the distance, and saltwater affecting your special robotics, named Bruce. The film was ultimately a production disaster. The budget for the film was $4 million, and in total the film ended up costing roughly around the range of $9 million. The special effects alone cost actually $3 million, just because of all the problems with all the different sharks they had. The shark would get tangled in seaweed, hoses for the mechanics for the sharks would flood with the ocean water, the non-absorbent foam that they used for the skin would actually bubble up and basically cause a bubble on the shark's skin. Spielberg said that in a 12-hour workday, maybe at the most 4 hours was actually spent filming. In fact, the film was only supposed to last 55 days, but ended up at over 159 days, ending on October 6, 1974. The shark so rarely working consistently caused much of the film to be completely rewritten the day of or the night before, including the opening scene of the film. Originally, the shark was supposed to come out of the water and completely devour Chrissy, but because the shark wasn't working, they rewrote the scene so that we'd only see her from eye level, and then they had the actress get pulled around wire to kind of simulate the attack. They also, in the later stages of the film, planned on us seeing the shark a lot more than we actually do. In fact, the entirety of the floating yellow barrels was included so that way they could tell you where the shark was without you actually having to see the robotic shark. He included many shots of the dorsal fin coming over through the water, arguably the most iconic parts of this film, simply because he wanted to explain where the shark was for large swaths of the movie when the shark was missing. In an interview a while later, he said that this forced creativity is what made this movie as iconic as it is. He said it made it more of a Hitchcock, the less you see is the more you get type of thriller, which I completely agree with. The film went so bad that Steven Spielberg was completely absent from the last day of shooting, the scene where the shark blows up, because there was a rumor where after they were done shooting the film, they were going to throw Steven Spielberg over into the ocean. So it's kind of an interesting fact. In every film since then, it's become a tradition that he is not on set during the filming of the last scene of the movie. The robot being broken in Jaws, while Steven Spielberg feared for his future as a filmmaker at the time, his ingenuity, the ingenuity of the crew, the creativity of everyone on set, and sometimes just pure luck, created the first summer blockbuster and changed the future of Hollywood forever. When all was said and done, the film grossed $100 million in 58 days, and in 78 days overtook The Godfather for the highest grossing American film at the box office. So take this as a lesson. Sometimes when the shark doesn't work, keep swimming. You just never know where the current will take you. Thank you very much for watching. I really appreciate it. I have loved Jaws since I was a kid. It's probably my favorite movie of all time if I had to pick one. In fact, it made me not go swimming alone, like even in baths at all. I hated it so much. It scared me really bad. Later on, Psycho made me very scared of showers. So horror movies made me scared of, very basic hygiene. Anyways, if you want to, you can follow us. It's at MediaByteCo on TikTok and at MediaByteCompany on Instagram. I'd really appreciate it. On the MediaByte Podcast Network, there is Slash It, Diary of an Indie Filmmaker, and Exploring Cinema. Patreon are for commentaries, ad-free podcasts, and more, and a bunch of other cool, fun stuff that's going to be on the Patreon. That's patreon.com/MediaByte. Thanks. Peace.